Hi, so today I'm going to be talking about my favourite podcast that you definitely need to listen to. I used to not really be into podcasts and thought they weren't really for me, but during lockdown I think they're so good just to feel like you have someone to talk to, especially when you really care about the people who are doing the podcast. It really feels like you can connect with them. And also, now that I'm living alone, it's so nice just to have people on in the background. Honestly, it's in my bucket list to feature on someone's podcast. Okay, first is Acting My Age. So I absolutely love this podcast. It's so unfiltered and genuine, and it's really just like a girls chat every single episode. And Rohini Elise, who hosts the podcast, often does have other girls on, and it is just like a true girls chat. And they talk a lot about social media and spirituality and sexuality, and it's just such an interesting podcast. So as I said before, it is by Rohini Elise. She is a YouTuber and a podcaster. She does spirituality and lifestyle content. She has a really unique background, which she talks about on the podcast. And also she just gives me like the best hippie vibes, so absolutely love hearing her talk. I think my favourite episode so far is Gals Chats with Nana Florence, university, long distance relationships, astrology and more. Okay, so moving on to the next podcast, this is Becoming an Influencer. So on this podcast there are lots of interviews with really interesting people, but also solo episodes. There's lots about social media, influencing as the title says, just being in your 20s and jobs in your 20s, and also quite a bit of college student life. This podcast is by Amanda Jewell, who is a micro-influencer. I found her on YouTube, but I know she's also on Instagram, and obviously she has the podcast. She does lots of lifestyle and law of attraction content, but also student content. And my favourite episode so far is working in the influencer industry, moving to England, and content strategy with Nikki Page. Okay, so this next one you've probably heard about. It is a massive podcast, but I absolutely love it. It's like my all-time favourite, and that is Pretty Basic. So Pretty Basic is just chatty, there's gossip, there's stories, there's advice, and also because of who the hosts are, there's so much insider gossip about LA and social media, and I think it's so interesting. But they also talk so much about social media brands and YouTube. So Pretty Basic is by Alicia Marie and Remy Cruz, who are both OG sort of fashion, beauty, lifestyle YouTubers, and they both do lifestyle and vlogs now, and I think they're so amazing and they just have the best friendship. My favourite episodes are, I have two for this one, Addressing Our Internet Beef and Real Life Struggles During Your 20s, What We Wish We Knew. So this next podcast recommendation I think is on pause. I think there's some issues with distribution, but it's definitely coming back, hopefully. But I definitely recommend you either go back and binge watch it or just have a look at the titles and find some episodes you might like. So this podcast is Souls at Sundown. So this is basically a music and advice podcast where Megan would talk about a topic and then she'll play songs to do with the topic or just songs she recommends. And honestly, I get so many good music recommendations from this. Such a great podcast. So as I said, the host is Megan Hughes. She's a YouTuber and she also does Instagram and Twitch. She's all about sustainability and lifestyle, and she does lots of gardening and herbalism content. And also, I think one of the main reasons I love watching her is she's based in the Pacific Northwest, which I just think is such a cool area. And her entire lifestyle is just so interesting to me. So I have two favourite episodes for this one as well. I think Scissor, We Have to Stan, and the 1975 We Have to Stan are my two favourites. So this next podcast, again, is also on pause, but I highly recommend you go back and binge it, and that is Call Me Candid. So this is technically a business podcast, but they talk about social media and brand management, but also motivation and advice and just lifestyle in general. This podcast is hosted by Hayley Pham, who you might know. She's a really big YouTuber. She does lifestyle vlogs, fashion content, and also currently wedding content because she's getting married. And also she's Christian, so she does lots of Christianity content. I'm not Christian, but I love hearing about other people's spiritual and faith journeys, which they talk about on the podcast a lot. So the other host of this podcast is Lillian. She's an illustrator, and her illustrations and calligraphy are so amazing. She's mainly on Instagram, but she just started on YouTube, and she also has her own company and again is also a Christian, so they talk about all that kind of stuff on the podcast. So my favourite episode currently is how I hit 2 million subscribers on YouTube and how you can too. So this is my last recommendation for the video. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many, but this is Unfiltered. So Unfiltered is so genuine and honest, and it just feels like a really open conversation with advice. So on the podcast, relationships, social media, sexuality, spirituality are all topics that are covered. And this podcast is hosted by Lindsay Hughes. So Lindsay is like a real original YouTuber. She currently does lifestyle vlogs and sustainability content, but I actually discovered her through Megan Hughes, who hosts Souls at Sundown, who is her sister. I have two favourite episodes for this podcast, and that is favourite things about fall, beauty, lifestyle and life update, and then my spirituality and positivity journey and beliefs. So I will link all of these podcasts down below. I really enjoy all of them, and I definitely think you should give it a listen. I also have tons more recommendations, so you can always ask me in the comments, or I can can always make another video like this. So if you like this video and you've got any recommendations, please do like and subscribe. I'd love to see more of you. In my analytics, I can see that I think it's like 90% of you guys who watch aren't subscribed, so it would really mean so much to me if you guys would subscribe. I would love to see more of you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some good recommendations.